Hello and welcome to our Awakening Together YouTube channel. This is our Satsang with Brian Tom O'Connor. You can find out more about Brian on his website, awarenessexplorers.com. For more information about our non-dual community or to join us live, visit our website, awakening-together.org. Please remember to subscribe and click that bell for more notifications. Thank you for watching.
Okay, welcome. Hello, Brian.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience tonight. And
that was fun.
It is fun. Yeah, no worries. Thank you for finding your way back in and for being here and giving us your time tonight. I'm so excited to interview you. I love the Awakening Games.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, let me read a little introduction from your new book, Awareness Adventures, and talks about the author, that's you. Brian Tom O'Connor is the author of Awakening Games, Playing with Your Mind to Create Joy, and is the co-host with Jonathan Robinson of the podcast Awareness Explorers. He's also a singer, cabaret performer, and musical theater nerd. And more importantly, he's a formerly depressed guy who stumbled into the infinite joy of lying at the heart of all experience, who loves to share this discovery with anyone who is interested. So what would you like to have us all know about you, Brian, before we get into it?
I used to be miserable and reclusive and hostile, and now I'm pretty happy. That's really the main thing. I got into this looking for happiness, not necessarily looking for enlightenment.
Beautiful. And so what was the original inspiration for your first book, Awakening Games?
Well, yeah, actually, I think I might have misspelled it in my bio. It's Awareness Games. It's probably a typo, but anyway, I was looking for, I was acting in a play. It was called The Cherry Orchard by Chekhov. And after it was over, I was really depressed, and I had been depressed for decades. And I thought, oh no, not again. Here we go again. And I went online and I thought, I've got to be a different sort of person than I am. And so I typed in how people change. And it led me on a really wild goose chase of all different kinds of psychological and new age and magical stuff. And then, through some great luck, I stumbled upon a website that had book reviews of I Am That by Nisargadatta Maharaj and Who Am I by Ramana Maharshi. And this was all about self-inquiry. And I started asking, who am I? I started or meditating just on I over and over again. And I started to notice that there was this underlying happiness that wasn't related to external circumstances. And it wasn't related to whether my personality was different or not. So the irony of it all is that what I ended up finding wasn't what I was looking for, how to change myself. It was what I ended up finding was noticing that there's something that's already there, that's already allowing everything that is, which is therefore unconditionally loving, which is therefore happiness itself.
That's so beautiful. And it's so in alignment with what Awakening Together studies from all these masters, including the two that you mentioned,
Good.
Nisargadatta and Ramana Maharshi. That's just beautiful. You mentioned too that Rupert Spira was an inspiration for the Awakening Games. Could you speak more to that?
Absolutely. But this was actually after I wrote Awareness Games that I learned about Rupert. My first teachers were Pamela Wilson, who was the first satsang I ever went to in New York, and Stuart Schwartz and Locke Kelly I studied with, and on Amazon I came across people who read this book also read, and there was a book by Rupert Spira. And so I went to his website to learn a little bit about him. And he talked also about happiness. He said that what people really want deep down is happiness. And he also talked about awareness. I mean, his basic teaching is be knowingly the presence of awareness. And then I found out that there was a group in New York that met every week at Walter and Patricia's apartment and watched videos. And I just started going every week. And that was like 5 years ago. And now I'm co-host of the weekly Rupert Spira meetup with Walter that we do on Zoom because they moved out of New York. And Rupert was the very first guest we had on Awareness Explorers, because the podcast that we started with Jonathan Robinson started just with Jonathan and me talking to each other about awareness. And then we decided, why don't we invite a guest or two? And we were floored when Rupert said yes, because when I first asked him at one of his workshops in New York, he said, thank you very much, but I'm going to give it to my assistant, but she will probably say no because I get asked so many times. And we got this email saying Rupert would like to be on. So I said, yay.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Our founding minister, Regina Dawn Akers, also began her awakening games with Rupert Spira. It was in his book, The Transparency of Things.
Yes.
So I think that's very interesting. Yes. And so Regina's actually continuing with a new she calls them awakening games every week.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes. So your podcast, Awareness Explorers, is so amazing. I know our president minister, Jacqueline, she played a lot of those in the beginning of one of her programs. So could you speak a little bit more about the podcast and how that has evolved for you?
Sure. Well, it happened again through good old Amazon. I don't mean to be to advertise them, but Jonathan Robinson stumbled upon my book. And Jonathan was a method junkie, self-described. And he said, oh, wow, here's a book with a whole bunch of different methods. Because one of the things about awareness games is that one thing might work for one person and might not work for another person, or one thing might work for yourself today and not tomorrow. So I put in a whole lot of different ways to play with your own mind, to turn your attention back to the pure background. So he just emailed me out of the blue on my website and say, hey, I'm going to be in New York. Love your book. Would you like to get together? And so we did. We had dinner in my favorite Chinese restaurant here in New York. And we just hit it off. And he said, hey, you want to talk on Zoom? And I said, sure. And we started just having chats with each other every week. And then Jonathan said, hey, you want to turn this into a podcast? I said, sure. I have no idea how to do that. I just went on Google and did some research on how to create a podcast, and somehow we figured it out, and there it is. And I think we're about to publish our 125th or 126th episode.
Wow, that's incredible.
And the weird thing about it is I look back on all the work I put into it, and it doesn't feel like work I put into it. It feels like it just sort of happened and used me.
Yes, that's beautiful. It flowed through you.
Yeah.
The meditations are just wonderful on those podcasts. And Jonathan's going to be our Satsang guest in March.
Oh, good.
Yes.
He's a very dear friend now.
I bet. So what's the difference between your first book, Awareness Games, and your new book, Awareness Adventures?
Well, the first book was sort of like a big sort of list. It was sort of a collection of individual games. And I came up with the idea of games because I used to, when I was a kid, play in my mind with things like, what if there was nothing? And see how that would make me feel. And then also my mother was a an acting coach and teacher and an actress, a professional actress herself. And she used to teach these things called theater games, which are ways of improvising about characters and relationships before you delve into the script. And so I decided to like sort of merge my sort of playful way of meditation with these theater games. And I thought, oh, let's just call them awareness games. But the first book is just a whole bunch of games. There's a little bit of intro and there's some tips at the end, but they're in no particular order. And so for the second book, I thought, well, let's do a few other things. Let's first talk a little about my personal experience with them. So there's more of that in there because people asked to hear about that. The other is they're sort of grouped a little more, structured by category. Like there's a section about diving into the body. There's a section about identity. There's different. So it's structured so that the games and meditations are grouped around a subject. And third of all, I decided to put in a few sort of philosophical observations that had occurred to me since I wrote the first one. So there's really two sides to the book. There's the philosophical, which is about non-duality, which is about what if there really is just one thing, the universe? Who could I possibly be if there's only one? And then the practical part, which is things you can do to connect with joy that's in the background of experience.
Beautiful. I love your new book. It's, as you say, it's really categorized into specific topics, so you can go right to a specific topic. It's got experiential things. It's got meditations. It's got philosophical. I love it.
Oh, thank you. So
Thank
glad to
you.
hear.
So what was the inspiration for using imagination in the book? A lot of times you, from what I saw, you encourage us to use imagination. How does that inform how you do these games?
Well, it sort of goes back to like when I first would start, when I was a kid, using my own imagination to imagine, like the example I gave, what if there was nothing? But it also comes around to when I first started to look into this, my mind would argue. Like, let's say someone would say, if you look out the window and you see a tree, that tree is really you, and it's not really out there, it's really in here. And my mind would say, well, no, it's not, and it would argue. And then I would realize, well, what if, instead of believing something to be true, I just imagined it? Like, what if it's the universe looking out my eyes right now? It's everything, just as it's looking out through billions of eyes simultaneously. Who cares what, don't necessarily believe it's true, because that activates up here. And that's not the part that knows the pure background. It's here. We sort of sense it. And that sort of universal, the ground of being, that universal love speaks to us in a different language than the verbal mind does. And so using imagination is sort of a little bit of a way to sidestep that logical and now analytical mind and say, don't believe it, but just what if it were true? How would you feel?
Beautiful. Yes, I was going to ask you about that, playing with what if, and it takes the pressure off the analytical mind, whose job it is to figure stuff out, and it goes right for the direct experience to look beyond what the mind's thinking.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
In fact, you use the word experienceable.
I don't know if that's a real word, but yeah.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot here, is the direct experience. It's beautiful.
Yeah, because we usually filter everything through ideas of what should happen or what shouldn't happen, or what happened in the past or what might happen in the future, or what categories things fall into. And these are these filters that we have, and they're actually kind of like gauzy films that veil actual reality or direct experience, as you put it.
Yes. Yes. Another thing you mentioned is humility is important. Thinking we know creates divisions in our mind. How does humility play with you and how your practice is?
Well, that little thing, that little ego thing that says I'm special and I'm, different from everybody else is this idea. It's just in the mind, and it can be another one of those veils between you and just direct experience. So it's kind of like, what if I didn't know anything? What if I really didn't know? I mean, it's such a trap that we all fall into at some point during this sort of non-duality game. Oh, I've got it. I understand it. I understand the principles. I know how it works, and I can say all the words and use all the terms. And words are there to make distinctions between things. So they can't possibly describe reality as it is. And our ideas of ourselves are just ideas made of words. And so when we kind of say, okay, maybe maybe it's not about how smart I am or how much I know, and maybe it's about that what's looking out through your eyes is identical as to what's looking out through my eyes.
Yes, that's beautiful. And that's how the awakening games really work for me, is it comes at it from a different way. It brings this awareness into awareness. This attention goes to awareness instead of what the mind's thinking. And if the minute I think I know, everything closes down, revelation can't happen.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It's like we have the world out there, and we send information back. And because we're so focused on the outside, the naming things and the categorizing things, there's just a one-way flow. But when you turn your attention around and you just touch that background, that sort of pure feel, it's like a mirror, like a clear mirror that doesn't decide what to reflect. When you touch it, a two-way stream starts to happen, and that kind of joy and love starts flooding back into the individual personality. And a lot of people think, well, happiness for the individual personality isn't something you should go for. And I think you can go for it and still connect with non-duality, because the amazing thing about the big paradox is that non-duality includes duality. It's not, you don't say, oh, this is non-dual, that's dual. It doesn't work like that.
Excellent point. And I love that touching the background.
Yeah, like you create this little wormhole and it just floods back. It's so cool. and if you've done it once, it might take weeks or months to do it again, but little by little it gets easier and easier and quicker until you can just sort of do it at the drop of a hat many times throughout the day, whenever.
Yes, another advantage of playing these games all day long.
Yeah. That's right.
And also I love how you described how when the mind describes something, then I don't see what's actually in front of me. Say I see a tree and then I define it. It's a ponderosa pine. It's got this going on. It's got that going on. Well, what can't I just see? What is actually in front of me? It's an expression of life.
That's right. It is life. And I was listening to Angelo DeLullo. I don't know if you know of him. I think he's a wonderful teacher. And he said, when you're looking or listening, you let the sounds replace you, or you let the forms that you're looking at replace you. And I thought that was a wonderful a metaphor. Like, so you're looking at that tree, and instead of saying, okay, that's something out there, as you mentioned, like Shauna, you said, like the ponderosa pine, we love to categorize it. We just think, well, what if that I'm looking at is me? And there again, it's imagination. It's what if. You play around with it and see.
Yes. Make it fun. That's another reason I love these games, is this mind wants to be so serious about everything. So be a little less serious and be open to playing, to exploring, be childlike.
That's right. That's right. Because you have to try for yourself to see, and we usually, think, okay, we have a master who is an enlightened master, and he's going to give us something that we don't have. And nothing against enlightened masters. I have so many, many teachers I love and admire, but I never got the sense that they gave me something I didn't have. They helped me turn my attention around to something that's already there.
Yes. Yes, exactly. They're pointing it to us. We have to find it ourselves, within ourselves. Beautiful.
Right. And so a playful attitude helps you find it for yourself instead of like doing it the right way. Well, let's see if I can do it my way. Let's try. Let's play.
Yes. Beautiful. So in the new book, you talk about the core wound, the idea of a core wound. Could you speak to that, please?
Sure. Well, we have wounds that happen to us in early childhood, things, existential fears of abandonment, fears of losing our parents' love, that are so deep, and usually result in the core wound, which is that I'm bad, I'm no good, right? And that's really there, and that's really hard to root out, and it causes a lot of problems in our lives because we have fears and we have things that we don't do because we're afraid of them. And one thing about this whole business is that another thing that can prevent us from direct experience is when we decide we don't want to feel what we feel. We don't want to have our emotions. And because we have this idea that spiritual people just, are happy all the time and they don't have emotions. But no, you have to sort of relax, because emotions, they come and they go. They don't want to stick around. They stick around when you clutch. You say, oh, I don't want to have that emotion. Then they just form a little eddy. They don't come in and they don't and they don't leave. So you have to be kind of porous. But when you get really down to the deepest emotion that you have, like, okay, I'm afraid of something. Okay, why am I afraid of that? Or what's underneath that? Or anger. You keep going, what's underneath that? And there's, like a very basic, like for instance, I would sit down and just ask these deep questions and start crying and allowing the emotion to come. And I would just, be crying, and I would narrow it down to this fear I had when I was a kid that maybe my parents hated me, or because I'm bad. And all the situations when our parents punished us or they got mad, we interpreted as us being bad. And it wasn't the case. They're human beings with their own problems. And it's not about us. And the other thing about that is that we have parts of ourselves that say, oh, don't go there because it's dangerous and you don't want to have that feeling. And they're like these big, dumb guards that they don't realize that they're really not needed anymore because you're grown up and you can manage, but they're there. And we think that they're the enemy. We think that they're there to make us feel bad and to prevent us, to be scared of life. But they're not the enemy, because they were there to protect us. And why would they want to protect us? Because they love us. So it really, even our deepest fears are about a part of ourselves that love us enough to want to protect us.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you, Brian.
Sure.
And we look at this I am bad belief a lot here at Awakening Together, and just allowing all those emotions to come up and express themselves as a way to allow them to pass through. You know, intense emotions have never killed us. And what sees those emotions? What is it that allows emotions to pass through?
Yeah, really, you hit the nail on the head. That's the core question. What is this? What sees these emotions? What knows my experience? What is that?
And is it ever affected by any emotion that goes through it?
That's right. It's like a mirror. Yeah, you're right. It's not. It's okay with whatever you feel, which is why that paradox can happen. You can be happy even when you're sad. It sounds crazy, but you don't have to be, oh, I'm smiling all the time. You can have emotions. You could be angry, you could be sad, but you can know that they're not you, that they're passing, they're clouds and you're the sky is my favorite analogy for emotions. They pass through and the sky's unaffected.
Yes. And one of my favorite games in your new book is the Staff of Ra, R-A-A. Could you
Yeah.
speak to us about that?
Sure. Well, this all came from trial and error with myself, seeing, okay, what worked. And I realized that, first of all, if I'm tense physically, that's going to get in the way. So the first step was just simply relaxing the body, taking some deep breaths, scanning the body for wherever I'm holding on or clutching or tight. So relaxing would be step one. And then I call it allowing, which is, and you don't have to do this forever. You can just do it for 5 minutes. Just for now, can I allow everything to be as it is, including how I feel, including what I'm thinking, whatever, everything just, okay, I'm not trying to change my experience right now, I'm just allowing. And then the third, awaring, is turning your attention around to the clear field in which all experience appears. And not only turning your attention to it, but you do sort of like a second turnaround. You turn around once to look inside, but then once you see it, you turn around again and you look out at the world or at your experience as that. You identify with the clear field of awareness. So that's why I just called it collectively awaring, looking inside at awareness, turning around and just being that. So when you think of, okay, relaxing, allowing, awaring, you practice them each individually till you get good at them. But pretty soon you can just say Ra and you're there. Ding.
That's wonderful. I love it. Awakening Together has a similar exercise called Rest, Accept, and Trust. We call it RAT. So,
oh, I love it.
isn't it great? So
Yeah.
same thing. It's relaxing or resting the thinking mind, allowing the experience, allowing what's here, and then trusting that it's for our healing. And same as you, we practice each one in the beginning, and then it's pretty soon you just go rat, rat. Yes.
Right. I used to call it schwooming because I used to go schwoom, and that's there, but that's not quite as mnemonic. But I love rat. I'm going to try that one myself.
And schwooming was one of my favorites in your first book.
Oh,
I had that.
thanks.
Oh, I have it all highlighted and underlined. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
And just how important is relaxing, because anytime my attention is on thought, the body shows this contraction, this withdrawing, this holding.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. And then your things don't just move through you. They don't. When you're not relaxed, it's like Well, it's like the analogy of the stiff, dry twig that breaks if you bend it, or the supple one that just moves with the wind.
Yes, beautiful. So how about we open it up to see if anyone else has questions?
Oh, great.
Okay, would anyone like to, if you could put on your electronic hand if you have a question for Brian? Rhoda, please.
Hi, Brian. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. Rhoda.
I had heard you say early in the interview, or maybe it was the way Shauna described you, and I had read in your books that you often describe yourself as formally depressed.
Right.
So I was wondering, I am curious about the transition. What did that arc look like? Maybe you could take us through that.
Sure. Well, I certainly have to admit that I did go through years of psychotherapy, and that definitely took the edge off, because basically it was a safe place to have your emotions. But it didn't go all the way for me. It didn't go all the way until I learned the sort of the self-inquiry part of it, the being awareness part of it. But once I learned that, I realized that we think of depression as a separate emotion. And I don't think depression is an emotion. I think depression is a strategy not to have emotion. So we don't want to feel anger, particularly. We don't want to feel anxiety or fear. And so we come up with ways to dampen ourselves, to sort of like put a lid on everything. And then we don't experience life fully, because we've got, everything sort of tamped down. And I know for me, when I was depressed, I was really tired all the time and slept a lot. Although I know for some people it's the opposite. When they're depressed, they can't sleep. But for me, it was all I wanted to do was sleep. And it really was a combination of the knowledge that you had to have your emotions, you had to allow them to be there, and the ability to look at the clear background in which they appear. And little by little, depression sort of faded away. And I realized, oh, wow, even if I'm, angry at something, or even if I'm anxious about some practical thing or afraid, I'm not depressed about it anymore. I'm not, my life isn't like on hold. Just, oh, okay. And my friend Bridget, who's a wonderful teacher of inner voice dialogue, Bridget Dingle Gaspard, we have this term called Rolls-Royce skills. Like, that, okay, when it comes around, you have the tools now. You can say, okay, I'm not this feeling, but this feeling is here. Take a breath, notice where it appears, and not only that, notice what else is in awareness right now. You have this emotion, but you also have sounds. You also have the sensations in your body, and it's all appearing in the same field. And when you include as much as possible in your field of awareness, the emotion is that much smaller in proportion to everything.
I just have to say thank you for that new description for depression. You had said something in your book about words being the great limiters or limitations, something like that. I love that. And when I just heard you describe depressed, never in my life had I thought about it, but that is actually what's happening.
Yeah.
That's so, it's like depressing a button. Like
yes, depressing.
That's so
perfect.
good.
Literal.
That's so good. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, that was enlightening. Oh my gosh. Depression is just pants, yeah, pushing a button. And I love that because that was one of my other games. You're include from the original game.
Right.
Include everything. Again,
Yep.
because that makes that one little issue seem smaller when you're aware of what's actually all going on.
Yep. Yep. And it also redirects your attention to
Yes.
to the background, the ground of being.
Yeah. So who else has a question for Brian? Nope. Nobody at this moment. Okay. So at any time anybody wants to ask a question, please put up your electronic hand. That'd be awesome. Let's see. In your new book, explain the phrase in, back, down, and out.
Well, that sort of came about because I don't know, when I decided to call the book Awareness Adventures, all of a sudden all these geographical and travel and discovery kind of images started to pop into my mind. So I thought in, down, and in, what was it? In, I didn't,
In, back,
in,
down,
back, down,
out.
and out. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. It's sort of like the four directions, east, west, north, and south. And in is looking within. Down is dropping below the neck. Instead, taking it out of the head and into the body and the heart. Back is turning your attention to the background of experience and being that. And out is looking out at the world and seeing that that is also in awareness and is made of awareness. And since awareness is what you are, it's also you. So they're just sort of like little things you can play with to redirect you there. Or here.
Excellent. Very nice. Thank you. The awakening game that Regina came up with that we're playing this week, actually the last 2 weeks, is awareness and object. So last week it was looking at awareness and looking at the objects around us, and is awareness and object. And then
Right.
this week we're looking in the body. Is awareness in the body as an object? So it's cool to look at both of those and see that awareness is not an object.
Yeah. Well, those are both so good. They're just perfect. And looking at the body, because the biggest, strongest sense of I is the body. I am this body. And we realize that sense of myself as the body is actually a thought in awareness, along with everything else in awareness. And somehow you expand, you become bigger. I call it the little me and the big I. You sort of just expanding to include the body. And who has a body? Who is this me that has a body? So those two that you just described, those are perfect.
Fun stuff. And I did want to mention in the chat, you can search on Spotify for the Awareness Explorers.
Yeah, someone asked in the chat if it was on Spotify, but I said yes, but I forgot to mention the name.
Okay, got it. And Sina, please.
So one of the things we also are big about here is discernment, true discernment, in fact. And I'm wondering, are there any discernment games or a way to make discernment into a game?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by discernment. So there probably are, but let's talk about what is discernment.
Right action, like you're following the right-minded.
Okay. Yeah.
Something that's helpful for the whole, or helpful that guides you to awakening, as opposed to wrong-minded.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely believe in the principle of doing the right thing. And that is with or without non-duality, or with or without spirituality. I mean, when in doubt, do the right thing. But what is the right thing? I think the right thing is that which brings about the most happiness and helps reduce the most suffering for all beings. But sometimes it's hard to know that. And when we sort of leave the analytical mind and just go back to being awareness that it's all happening in, and when we see that if awareness has no qualities of its own, and the awareness looking out of your eyes has no qualities of its own, then they're identical. And the next step is maybe not only are they identical, but maybe they're the same thing. So if what you are basically is identical to what I am basically, then what I do to you, I'm doing to me. And this can inform the choices we make in the world when we interact with each other, because it will come out of unconditional love. It's, you know, it's you are me. So if I hurt you, you know, who am I hurting? Anything but me. So I think that that's one way to do it. And there's another way that I'm not sure if this is totally zeroing in on your question, but I think it's really important. A lot of people say, well, allowing everything to be as it is means you don't take any action in the world. And I think it's a misunderstanding. I think that allowing everything to be as it is, one of the things to allow is that sometimes we're called upon to act, to help. The analogy I give is three guys are walking along a riverbank and there's a child in the water drowning. And one guy says, it's God's will that that child fell in the water. It's not up to me to do anything about it. The second guy says, oh my God, how did this happen? Why aren't there guardrails? Where is that child's parents? This is just wrong. And I'm wearing my new suit, so I can't do anything about it. And the third guy says, okay, it may be God's will that that child fell into the ocean, but it's also, I mean, into the river, but it's also God's will that that child fell into the river in view of an able-bodied adult who can swim. And you jump in. And that's what you're called upon to do. So allowing everything to be as it is must include what you're called upon to do in life to help others. I hope, does that answer the question at all?
That was beautiful. Thank you, Brian. Another misperception that I hear about allowing everything is, well, that means I have to agree with what's happening.
Oh, right. Yeah, I know it's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah.
The fact that I don't agree with what's happening is part of what's happening that I allow. It's like my own resistance is something that I can let go of resisting. It's a little tricky and paradoxical, but yeah.
Yeah, it is. And Susan has a question. Thank you, Susan.
Hi, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to give a shout out to the Awareness Explorers. I've been listening to you and I love your podcast and especially your meditations. And I think episode 99 on thoughts and emotions, that was such a brilliant, I mean, there's all of them are wonderful. So, but you make it so easy because you can download the podcast and then you separate out the meditations so you can listen to those separately, and I use them consistently. And so I'm so grateful. I love your voice and I was so excited to see that you were on tonight. I had a friend, I was just introduced to you through a friend who gave me a book, probably your first book, The Awareness Games.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it was 3 years ago. So, and yeah, I love it. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Susan.
I've
That's
been
really
enjoying it. Yeah,
so gratifying to hear. And
yeah,
can't wait to
makes a
tell
difference.
Jonathan about what you said too.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. So thank you.
I'm
Yeah,
glad.
such a gift, such a gift.
It's fun.
Thank you, Susan. And Rhoda.
Rhoda's always got questions about things. Questions, questions, questions. I happen to notice that you indicated somewhere along the line that you didn't feel yourself to be extremely disciplined. And that was why that's why the whole game thing was so appealing for you. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you see discipline or lack of discipline playing into all of this.
Well, I do admit that it's very different for everybody, and that some people are quite disciplined and some people are really feel that it's important every day at 6 a.m. to meditate for an hour. And it's great if that's them, they should, but it wasn't me. I just somehow, like, I would tell myself I would do that, and then I would end up not doing it, and then I would end up feeling bad about myself. And then I started studying with Lot Kelly, who was a wonderful teacher here in New York, who studied with many Tibetan Buddhist teachers as well as with Adyashanti. And he used to talk about small moments many times a day. And I said, well, he's right. I can, even if I'm not good at picking the exact same time and the exact same length of my meditations every day. That doesn't mean that anytime I feel something I don't want to feel, I can't do the inquiry. I can't ask, what is this being experienced in? I can't direct the attention and then identify with the background. And so I realized, well, okay, instead of despairing, in other words, I fell back into the trap of, oh, I'm not the person who can have this discipline. And then I felt bad about myself. And then I thought, how am I going to change myself? And I fell back into the same old trap. How do I fix myself? And so, but I was determined. I mean, being happy was my one goal in life. And I had a educated guess that this self-inquiry, this shift in identity was the key. But I came up with my own ways to sort of circumvent that lack of discipline by giving myself triggers throughout the day. Like, as soon as I had an emotion I didn't want, ask the question, drop into the background, be awareness. Or as soon as I walked into a spiritual bookstore, oh, maybe it's not something I need from those books to come into me. Maybe it's something, or simply every time I walk down a long hallway. I mean, I worked in an office building in New York, and I live in an apartment building. So walking down a long hallway was something that happened many times a day. So I just used that little trigger. And I would imagine the hallway moving through me instead of me moving through the hallway. So I just found my ways to sort of like, okay, I can do this without the self-discipline that other people bring to it, because it's not in my nature, but it's not in any way to put down people who have that discipline, and I admire them.
I just really appreciate the playfulness of your approach to, discipline. And the example you just gave, I just kind of went, wait, what? The hallway moving through me. Let me try that.
Yeah, right. It's good on buses too.
It's probably good in cars too. Just
absolutely.
Is it coming through me?
Yeah, right.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's the playing around for yourself. You try it and see. Might not work for some people, or it might work today and not tomorrow. So, you have a bunch of them.
I'm sorry. Can I ask another question, Jonathan?
Of course. Yes.
so because your use of imagination is just so intriguing to me. There's just kind of this light excitement about it, and it seems to come so naturally to you. Is that kind of how it works through you, or does it, is that something is there something I can do to help kind of gin up that sort of playful, desireful, fun?
Well, probably are a bunch of things. It didn't always come naturally, so you have to know that, sort of be patient. You have to say, well, maybe I don't have to get this right this time. You have to give yourself permission to be the expert on what works for you. And the other thing is, you have to realize that I don't have to know how to do this forever. I only have to figure out how to do this now for a few seconds. And it's like a pan with drops of oil. You put a drop of oil here, and you put a drop of oil there, and you put a drop of oil there, and then one drop is next to another, and it touches and forms a bigger drop and a bigger drop, and eventually all those little drops of oil just sort of congeal into one big drop, and you realize that all of a sudden, what was just little moments, many throughout the day, are sort of creating this kind of perfume that's actually wafting through your experience, even when you're not intentionally doing the games or the meditations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Rhoda.
That was one of the things I was going to comment on, Brian, is these games begin working without me efforting.
Yeah, right.
There's an effort in the beginning, like you said, setting triggers to remember, but then pretty soon it just happens. Oh, this is in awareness.
Yeah.
Oh, awareness is here. It starts working on us in such a beautiful, natural way.
Yeah. And when you connect with that sort of joy, and you can sort of do it, at first it may take a few minutes to sort of walk back to it, but when you sort of get into the habit, you can do it a little bit more effortlessly. It starts to pervade your whole life and experience, even, well, I guess I already said this, but even when you're not doing it. And there's another metaphor that I like to use, because I'm not big on the idea that I have to achieve a state of awareness permanently. And that's something that will help when you sort of let go of that idea. That helps with the lightness. And the metaphor I use for that is an infinitely refillable water bottle. Awareness itself is like an infinitely refillable water bottle. Whenever you're thirsty, you grab it and you take a drink. But you actually don't have to walk around with a bottle to your lips 24/7. It's there when you need it. And when you do it enough, you relax, because you know it's there, and you don't have to worry, am I in this state all the time?
Yes, great point. I can relax because I know it's always there.
Yeah, right.
Beautiful. And then another fun thing, the very last of your new book, Awareness Adventures, you have Dorothy's Discovery. Dorothy, of course, from The Wizard of Oz, which just caught my eye because we've been playing that very same clip from The Wizard of Oz. You've always had the power to go home. Right. And it's true. It's just so beautiful. Come home, you never actually left.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I find that whole thing a beautiful memory. I mean, a beautiful metaphor. Plus the fact that, ever since I was a little kid, I loved The Wizard of Oz. In 6th grade, I was the Cowardly Lion in the school play. But yeah, you know, it's because we think that there's something out there we're going to get. And it's something in here, it's home. It's what we are. It's already there. It's always been there. And we travel looking for it and come around full circle to realize, oh, it's here. And that's just like Dorothy. If this is like the end of the Wizard of Oz, what you just quoted, Dorothy saying, yeah.
Yes. And you know, the good witch says, oh, well, actually, Dorothy says, how come you didn't tell me this before? And the good witch says, because you had to find it out for yourself.
Yeah, good point. I forgot about that line.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do have to, and that's why you can't just learn the Advaita non-duality terms and be there. You have to experiment on yourself and try it and experience it.
Yes, it's true. So I wondered if you would be open to guiding us in a little meditation, gamified meditation.
Oh, sure.
Awesome.
Did you have any particular ones in mind, or I have a few that I thought I might do, but if you have
No,
any
I just love your
requests.
voice.
Oh,
So
thank you.
it's perfect for meditation. So whichever one comes to you.
You know, I'm just looking at a list I sort of made up before, just in case, and I'm trying to think of, you know, I think that the one that seems to me to help so much, because a lot of people have trouble with locating awareness, you know, like turning attention to awareness is just like very hard to do. And I think that there's something that you could do, and I call it triangulation, that helps. So yeah, now I usually like to read these meditations. I know a lot of people sort of sit and channel them and have them come through, but if you don't mind, I'm actually going to read it from the book.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, so first, take a nice, easy, deep breath and notice if there's any tension, holding, or clutching in your body. And gently let them soften and relax. And starting with your eyes closed, listen to the sounds around you. Maybe the hum of a fan or a heater, or the sounds of traffic or birds or wind outside, or the sound of my voice. As you notice the sounds that appear, ask yourself, what is the silent field in which the sounds appear? Notice each sound separately and ask the question, what is the silent field in which this sound appears? Now see if you can notice all the sounds at the same time and ask yourself, do all the sounds appear in the same silent field? Then notice your bodily sensations, the feel of your body on the chair or your feet on the floor. Or maybe there's a breeze on your skin, or the rise and fall of your belly as you breathe. And as you notice the sensations that appear, ask yourself, what is the empty, spacious field in which these sensations appear? Notice each sensation separately and ask the question, what is the empty, spacious field in which this sensation appears? Now see if you can notice all the sensations at the same time. And ask yourself, do all these sensations appear in the same empty, spacious field? Now see if you can notice both the sounds and the body sensations at the same time. Ask yourself, is the field in which sounds appear the same as the field in which sensations appear? This is the clear field of awareness. It's not two different fields. It's one field. Sensations of the body appear, sounds appear together. Now notice what thoughts are appearing now. Just imagine for now that the thoughts are coming from somewhere outside of you and are projected on a blank screen inside you. Imagine that that screen has both sound and subtitles, so you can either hear or read each thought that appears. Imagine the screen is like a clear, empty field in which thoughts appear. As you notice the thoughts that appear, ask yourself, what is the blank, empty field in which these thoughts appear? Now see if you can notice both the thoughts and the body sensations at the same time. And ask yourself, is the field in which thoughts appear the same as the field in which body sensations appear? Then see if you can notice both the thoughts and the sounds at the same time. And ask yourself, is the field in which thoughts appear the same as the field in which sounds appear? Now see if you can notice all three: the sounds, the sensations, and the thoughts appearing at the same time. And ask yourself, are these all appearing in the same clear, empty field of awareness? If you can notice all three at the same time, you realize they're not three awarenesses. It's just one clear, empty field in which all three of these experiences appear. That field is your true nature. Clear, spacious, silent, allowing. Now, if your eyes are closed, gently, at your own pace, open them again and take another nice, easy, deep breath. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
So welcome, Shauna.
There's that causeless joy.
I love that causeless, right? Exactly.
So would anyone like to share their experience with that meditation or any questions? Oh, please, Tatiana.
Well, meditation was very clear, really, really easy. And I didn't even feel when you said in this empty field, it was always feeling it's in me. It's always feeling in me. And it was fun. It was good. It was pleasant. But I want to share with you that I bought your book like a few years ago, and I tried those games. And it didn't work for me. I tried many of them. Nothing worked for me. So I left your book. Then in our gentle healing, we started to do games with Regina about Rupert Spira book, from Rupert Spira book. And it didn't work for me again. I don't know what's wrong with me.
There's nothing wrong with you. But what I found, and I don't know if this is true for you, but from my experience, when I sit down and do a game or a meditation and it doesn't work, it's usually because of one or two things. It's usually because something is going on that I don't want to be happening and I want it to change. Or some experience that I don't have now is something I'm hoping to have. And that's usually what's happening. And so when I just say, okay, what if I had absolutely no expectations of this, no desire to change anything, no effort, no intention, a result, and that's when all of a sudden things start to sort of ease up. As a matter of fact, just doing that alone is enough. You don't even have to keep going with the game.
I appreciate that a lot, because I do recognize that in the morning, my meditation like flows so easily for an hour and more and so on. And sometimes I do it at night. It never happens because probably stuff accumulated during the day and I expect it to happen and
Yeah.
it doesn't happening.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that
Sure,
was
thank you for the question.
Beautiful question. Thank you, Tatiana. Anyone else like to share their experience with the meditation? Or any other questions? I'll experience your meditation. In the beginning, it's so funny because I've noticed this before. Attention wants to land on one experience, the sound, and it doesn't want to include the sensation. or it'll go to the sensation. It doesn't want to include the sound. And so I just really relaxed. For me, the key was to relax. And then you said something about not being three different awarenesses. It's all within awareness. And then something inside relaxed. Oh, and then I could be aware of it all at the same time.
Mhm.
So that's a fun one. I'm going to play with that. Thank you.
Good. In the book, I extend it to quadrangulation, where I add the visual field. And then at the very end, I have the same exact thing, but extended a little more. I call it quintagulation, where I include the sense of yourself, which is just simply another appearance in awareness, along with sights, sounds, body sensations, thoughts.
That's so lovely. I'll have to look that one up. So, is there something beyond awareness?
What a good question. I don't really know. My guess is no. Everything is awareness. Awareness is all there is. Or you could say consciousness, if you prefer. But it doesn't mean, I don't think there is. And yet at the same time, there's a sense that every time I look there and be there and identify with it, it deepens in some way. And I can't quite, my mind can't quite describe why that is, but I sense it. What do you think? Is there something beyond?
Well, it's beyond words. So I think words, for me, the closest it would come to is isness.
Yeah.
Is.
Yeah.
Being. I don't, it doesn't seem like that needs awareness. It already is.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Because you now have let go of the idea of awareness as a thing, and you're just being. So yes, I think that's probably the perfect answer. Yeah.
Of course, I don't know.
Well, that's because you're humble, right?
Yes.
But it's also because you know how to drop down out of the analytical brain, which is useful. You don't get rid of it. You use it to plan when to get to the airport, when to leave for the airport, but it's not useful for connecting with your true nature.
Yes, we're learning to use the mind as a tool instead of the mind using us as a tool.
Right, exactly.
Anyone else have any questions? I'm wondering, oh, good, Rhoda, please, thank you.
I'm almost embarrassed to raise my hand again. So, that's okay. We're just going to let that feeling rise for a little while.
Mhm.
When you spoke about the quadrangulation, I'm not going to say that word, right? And you and Shauna were just speaking about dropping all concepts. The question that pops in is, in everyday living, part of the way that it feels like disconnection happens is the popping into the analytical mind and staying there. So what tools, or do you even do anything in particular for yourself to kind of loosen that desire to constantly be labeling? Like Shauna was saying earlier, you look at a tree, you don't experience the tree, you call it a tree, you give it a name, you label it a thing, but so much of interaction with people feels like it's here. It doesn't feel like it's here.
That's right.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Absolutely. It's funny because there's actually three different things that come to mind when you say that. I used to have conversations with people and not totally pay attention to them. Partly because I would become fascinated with their faces. I get so interested in people's faces, and I just look at them, and I stop listening to the words they say. And then when I just said, well, okay, that's not good, because I want to have a real conversation and connect with this person. When I started experiencing them from awareness. So and it seems counterintuitive, I'm turning my attention away from them into the awareness in which their words appear. For some strange reason, I had no trouble paying attention to the words that they were saying and getting their meaning and understanding them and connecting with them. So I find being awareness helps to connect with people. And the other thing is the body. That would be the other tool, because when you notice your body sensations, a body sensation can only be experienced now. It's not in the past, it's not in the future, and it can be experienced wordlessly. So wordlessness and combined with noticing body sensations is the quick, best, easy way to get out of your analytical mind. And then the last thing is a game I play called the Circle of This. And I imagine there's a circle. And in the circle is this. And what I mean by this is now, here, this. Now, period, here, period, this. What's happening now, what's happening here. And what's not this is thoughts about the past, thoughts about the future. And so I just play a game. I say, okay, I'm in the circle of this. How long can I stay here? And your mind takes you to the past. Your mind takes you in the past, into the future, and you just gently bring it back into the circle of this, which is now, which is here. And again, wordlessness really helps, and body sensations, even in that game.
It just keeps coming back in what you said in your book about words being the great limiters or the great limitations.
Yeah, they're handy little tools of separation. They're there to make distinctions between things.
They
Poison,
are.
not poison, danger, safety, and they're useful. But if there's only one thing going on, then they can't adequately describe ultimate reality.
And you called it circle of this? Circle of this?
Circle of this.
Circle of this.
How long can I stay in the circle of this? Meaning just this, now, here.
Fabulous. Thank you. Giving it back to you, Shauna.
Thank you, Rhoda. And I just wondered, we just put the 2 links into the chat for your 2 websites, playawarenessgames.com and awarenessexplorers.com. And if anyone would like to make donations, we can collect those and send them to you, Brian, to help support your games and your teaching and your meditations and all that you do. Appreciate that so much. And I just love that the emphasis in your new book. There's at least 2 emphases in your new book, the philosophical and the practical. We already are pure awareness, unconditional love that allows all. So when we turn our attention to this, the joy is that universal awareness that floods back in, like you've spoken about so beautifully. So there's lots of little ways to connect with this causeless happiness, and these games are so helpful for me. I appreciate all you've done to bring this to our awareness. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
The only thing is, it's just been so much fun to talk with everybody here, because I mean, just we seem to be very much on the same wavelength here. And you know, like whenever you say something, I totally get it, you know, and it seems vice versa. So it's just fun for me. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you all and share it and play around with it.
Yes, we're so in alignment. That's what makes it so much fun. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And is there anything coming up in your life that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I'm working on the audio book, but that's, you know, that takes a while. And next November, I'm going to be traveling to Taiwan. So I'm actually learning Mandarin. And that like takes up a lot of my day. And it's so much fun, but hard. But so, yeah, I don't just sit, you know, and just sort of zone out all day long. You know, do a lot of stuff. And I still, you know, practice singing, even though I'm not performing at the moment, because it's just singing is one of the most fun things in the world you can do.
Oh, can you sing us a little tune?
Oh, I shouldn't have mentioned it. Oh no, now I put on the spot. Wait a minute. Oh, I have an idea. Okay, I'm not going to sing this well. I'm just going to sing this not in my warmed up, you know, voice. Let me see if I can remember it. It's very clear our love is here to stay, not for a year, but ever and a day. In time, the Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble, they're only made of clay, but our love is here to stay. I always thought that great song by George Gershwin was like a non-duality song.
That's awesome. Yes. But Glenn Genoway that's in the room here and his love Yolanda, they have Sounds of Awakening once a month where they invite guests to come on and Yolanda sings and she writes her own music. So we'd love to have you join us on Sounds of Awakening.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have Glenn get a hold of you.
Sure.
Fun. Okay, Brian, thank you so much for giving us an hour and a half of your time tonight. We enjoyed it so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. And thanks, everybody. It was so much fun.
We look forward to playing your games and thinking of you as we do.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you for watching our Satsang. We hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to join us live, please remember you can do so by visiting our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary. Again, our website is awakening-together.org. Remember to click the bell for more notifications and subscribe.